Members, it's time, and we have a quorum. I call to order the meeting. On the agenda, there is one item for discussion. Before the meeting, the government submitted an information paper, ECI 2024-2513, for circulation to members. The paper contains information on changes in the approved directorate establishment since 2022 and the impact on the changes to the directorate establishment arising from today's discussion item. I'd like to remind members that if there is a direct or indirect peculiar interest in relation to the discussion item today, please disclose the nature of such interest before you speak in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure. I'd also like to draw members' attention to Rule 84 of the Rules of Procedure on the voting arrangement where there is direct pecuniary interest. The paper today is EC 2024-2515 in relation to the Environment and Ecology Bureau Food Branch. Proposed retention of one-time limited supernumerary post of Senior Principal Executive Officer D2 in the Food Branch of the Environment and Ecology Bureau for a period of 3 years with effect from the 26th of June 2025 or with immediate effect upon approval of the Finance Committee, whichever is later, to continue to take forward various tasks relating to food safety, food supply, and the facilitation of export of Hong Kong food products. The administration consulted the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene on the 10th of December 2024 on the relevant proposal. Attending the meeting today, we have Ms. Diane Wong, Undersecretary for Environment and Ecology, and Mr. Anthony Lee, Deputy Secretary for Environment and Ecology, Food 2. Now I invite the Chairman of the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene to brief members on the discussion of the panel. Thank you. Mr. Zhang, please. Thank you, Chairman. At the meeting of the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene on the 10th of December 2024, members discussed the proposed retention of one-time limited supernumerary post of Senior Principal Executive Officer in the Food Branch of the Environment and Ecology Bureau for a period of 3 years to continue to take forward various tasks relating to food safety, food supply, and the facilitation of export of Hong Kong food products. Members unanimously supported the administration's submission of the proposal to the Establishment Subcommittee for consideration. Members noted that the duties and scope of work of the retained post are more or less the same as the existing ones. The post holder will continue to oversee 3 policy areas, that is, the management of food incidents, reduction of salt and sugar in food, and the requirements of salt-sugar label scheme for prepackaged food products. Members put forward a number of specific suggestions on stepping up the effort of the government in these areas. Members also expressed concerns if the proposed retention for post for 3 years would be sufficient. The administration has already responded to the concerns and views of members at the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cheung. Members, you could press the button if you wish to speak. Now, I'll first invite the Undersecretary to take us through the paper. Thank you, Chairman and members. I'd like to brief members on the proposal to retain time-limited supernumerary Senior Principal Executive Officer post. I ask for your support. Now, there is now such a post. It will expire on the 26th of June 2025. The government proposes to retain the post for 3 years. The post handles matters in relation to food safety and food supply. Before 2017, there was just one directorate post in Division 2. In 2017, the Legislative Council approved the time-limited supernumerary post of SPEO. This is to give further director support to Division 2. And then the post was extended for 5 years upon the approval of the Council. The post played an important role in ensuring food safety and food supply, especially during the COVID pandemic. The post holder worked closely with the relevant departments and the mainland. This was the post holder managed to minimize disruption of food supply. And now on discharge of nuclear contaminated water, the post holder kept in close liaison with the relevant authorities in Japan. And then there is a coordination with various departments on risk analysis upon receiving the relevant surveillance, food and environmental surveillance data. The post holder also kept in liaison with food importers and the and Japanese food restaurants in Hong Kong. So and then the post holder keeps track of important developments, so as to devise relevant strategies. The post holder also helped local food manufacturers to seize the opportunities arising from the development of the Greater Bay Area. For example, the advance release arrangement was introduced in 2024. So specified categories of Hong Kong food products can be released upon completion of sampling without waiting for the results when entering into the mainland market. And in the next few years, we will still need to take measures in response to the discharge of nuclear contaminated water. We must keep reviewing the relevant import control measures, and then we need to expand the scope of the facilitation measures for locally produced foods to enter the main market. So these are important tasks. In the next few years, we need a directorate staff to oversee such tasks. If the post is not retained, definitely the overall efficiency, quality, and progress of work of the Division 2 will be severely affected. So we have considered the duties and work that the post holder must take up. So we believe the proposal is the best arrangement. Then we could cope with the work demands in the next 3 years, and there will also be flexibility for us to review the staffing needs. Thank you. Under Secretary, 9 members have pressed the button to speak. Mr. Chen Wing Kong, Mr. Bill Tang, Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, Mr. Kenneth Leung, Dr. Starry Lee, Mr. Chow Man Kong, Mr. Chen Yong, Mr. Chow Siu Chung, and Mr. Perry Yu. 5 minutes each. Thank you. I'd like to ask the following questions. According to paper, many of the tasks of the post holder have continuity. For example, food, reviewing the legislation such as the food adulteration, metallic contamination regulation, and ensuring food supply and so on. How come the government's just keeping the post for 3 years? How come you don't, why don't you just create a permanent post? And then one of the duties of the post holder is to oversee the facilitation of entry of Hong Kong manufactured food products into the mainland, and also to oversee import and export of food. Now, on facilitating Hong Kong manufactured food products into the mainland market, what sort of positive role will the post holder play? Are there any specific work targets? Third question. We know that many people like to go across the boundary for leisure, and people buy food, including food from wet markets from the mainland to come back to Hong Kong. And then in recent years, we've seen surge in cases of prohibited food being brought into Hong Kong. So will you work closer with the mainland authorities so that we could address the issue of prohibited food being brought into Hong Kong? This is to ensure food safety in Hong Kong, and also we want to help the public from being caught by the law inadvertently. Under Secretary, while I explain the duties of the post holder, and there are various policy matters that need to be worked on. So how come we don't make it a permanent post, or why don't we retain the post for a longer period? Now, we try to cope with the work demands in the next few years. At the same time, we want to keep flexibility. We need to ensure the sustainability of public finances. In fact, since 2021-22, the overall establishment of the civil service has been frozen. There's zero growth. And then in 25-26, we will continue to vigorously control the size of the civil service establishment. We want to make sure that the establishment won't be larger than that at the end of March 2021. And then in 25-26, in the budget, the government mentioned that in 2026 to 27 and 2027-28, we will reduce the civil service assessment by 2% compared to the previous year. So that's why on the 1st of April 2027, the civil service size will see a reduction of 10,000 posts, which is within the term of this government. So that's why we're retaining this post for 3 years. Before the expiry of the post of the 3 years, we will review the circumstances. If there is a need to extend the post, we will again seek support from the Establishment Subcommittee and the Finance Committee on facilitation on cross-boundary import-export facilitation. Now, in the first phase, we cover 3 categories of food, drinks, frozen food, not including alcohol and dairy products, and confectionery, bread, and then candies, chocolate, cocoa containing products, and so on. Now, so far, the arrangement's been working well. That is the advance release arrangement. And the trade would like this scope to be expanded to cover other categories of food. So we will therefore be maintaining active communication with the mainland authorities. And there's mention of online food sales or cross-boundary food sales. Now this has become an increasing concern for the public. Well, that's another post is involved, PAS1 and PAS4. They will work closely together. So then they could handle issues relating to online food sales and cross-boundary food sales properly. Now, Mr. Chen's third question is about the people bringing in food from mainland. Will you step up and follow enforcement? Yes, that's what PAS1 will do. Now, members of the public may bring food in from the mainland to Hong Kong. The Center for Food Safety will carry out law enforcement, and it will work with the Customs and Excise Department. So we will continue to step up our enforcement efforts. And the member asked whether the PAS4 will work on this as well. So that's what I tried to explain. Mr. Bill Tang. I think on this item, members' main primary concern must be import control measures in response to the discharge of nuclear contaminated water by Japan, and also in particular import control of food from Japan. Now we see that the Japanese government has changed its attitude. Is becoming more transparent. It's invited China and the neighboring countries to participate in samplings on water quality. Now we are an independent customs territory, and we impose import control food on our own. So are we also involved? You say that you will keep track of revenue information. So how closely will you keep track of such information? And is it the case that you can be sure that such information is reliable and credible? And in terms of disclosure of information, has the arrangement of the Japanese government changed? So now, of course, we need to monitor imported food on our own. but in terms of exchange of information, has there been improvement? So that's what we'd like to know. That's the first point. Second question. Now, you say that in the next few years there will be various uncertainties. That's why there's need to have a dedicated staff member. So what sort of uncertainties are those? And then I and Mr. Michael are very much concerned about food from Taiwan. And they like to use some American ingredients, and then there's this drug they use for keeping pork meat lean, and will such food be imported into Hong Kong? And then will there be any regulation of this drug? Will you step up inspection? Now, you're going to review the food adulteration, metallic contamination regulation. Of course, this is not metallic contamination, but you're going to include, are you going to watch such drugs? Thank you.
Since the 24th of August 2023, the Japanese government has been discharging nuclear contaminated water into the ocean. In September 2024, our country as well as the relevant authorities in Japan have reached an agreement. Under the framework of IAEA, a long-term monitoring mechanism was established. It includes the participation of China and other countries, individual sampling as well as comparison between different lab results were permitted. In October 2024 as well as May 2025, 2 individual samplings were carried out with the participation of experts from China as well as other countries. In the future, we will continue to closely monitor the results. The SAR government will monitor closely the latest development of the situation. We will also keep in close liaison with the Japanese Consul General. We will adopt a scientific approach to see whether there is room for us to gradually relax the precautionary measures. The member asked what uncertainties we will face. We'll have to look at the data obtained from the Japanese General Consulate as well as from the Foreign Ministry of China. We'll also continue to carry out analysis of the data collected to make a decision. So the post holder will be in charge of this as well. The member asked about the leanness enhancing agent. This is under the purview of PAS1. Under the current food safety legislations, we are carrying out review on the agents. We will report in a timely manner to the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene about our work. Mr. Bill Tang asked whether Hong Kong would take part directly into the testing of nuclear contaminated water. We've been in touch with the Foreign Ministry on the nuclear contaminated water related data. We have been collecting different types of data. We will carry out analysis on the level of radioactive agents in the imported food from Japan. Since August 2023, where contaminated water has been discharged into the sea, we have already tested about 100,000 food products imported into Hong Kong. We know that you've been doing the testing. I want to know whether Hong Kong will take part directly in the testing of the nuclear contaminated water. there is a framework established by IAEA as well as Japan. We've been liaising closely with Japan to obtain the data. So you're simply getting data from Japan. Last September, an enhanced monitoring mechanism was established, which allows our country to take part into the testing. And this mechanism was established under the framework of IAEA. So we can only obtain data from the Japanese Consul General as well as from the Foreign Ministry. That means Hong Kong will not take part directly into the monitoring. Is that right? Yes. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. I speak in support of the government's proposal, that is, to retain the SPEO time-limited post under the food branch of the EEB. According to the paper, this post holder is in charge of very important work. As mentioned, the scope of work covers the discharge of nuclear contaminated water by Japan, the review of food safety legislations, as well as the entry of Hong Kong manufactured food into the mainland. I believe the members of the public are very concerned about these types of work as well. Some of the food incidents have been resolved, but there might be new incidents in the future. So I think all these works have to be carried out in a continuous manner. I think this should not be a time-limited post, instead it should be a permanent post. Well, you are now proposing to retain this time-limited post, and I do not object to this. Please report to us to see whether there is a need to continue to retain this post in the future. I am concerned about the entry of Hong Kong manufactured food into the mainland. Since last May, there has been facilitation measures under the ARA, Advanced Release Arrangement. What is the latest progress about the entry of Hong Kong food into the mainland? Has there been more Hong Kong food entering into the mainland market? And what kind of food products from Hong Kong see an advantage? Undersecretary, I mentioned about 3 major types of food as at mid-March 2025. Through ARA, there have been 37 batches of Hong Kong food entering the mainland, which is over 280 metric tons. They include mooncake, also biscuits that value over $4,000. This is the latest development. We've also been in talks with the trade. We hope that they would make the best use of the existing mechanism to increase the amount of Hong Kong manufactured food being exported into the mainland. The trade hopes that we will talk to the mainland authorities so that more Hong Kong food will be exported into the mainland. Next member to speak, Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Chairman. I, in principle, support the retention of this time-limited post. I have a couple of questions for the Undersecretary. First, in relation to the job duties of this post holder, one of the duties is to review the metallic contamination in food. However, one of the duties of the PAS is also to review the harmful substances in food. How come you are splitting the 2 duties to 2 different offices? Since both duties concern harmful substances in food. Also, according to the paper, Since COVID in 2019, there has been different layers of food surveillance conducted by the administration. My question is that after COVID in 2019, has the government taken stock of its experiences in testing the different types of food products, and has the relevant practice been integrated into the existing workflow? 2 questions, Under Secretary. Let me address the first question first. Afterwards, the Deputy Secretary will answer the other question. PAS1 is in charge of reviewing food safety legislations. In 2017, we applied to create this post from the LegCo. And the review of the food adulteration, metallic contamination regulations back then has been included as one of the main duties of this post holder. This will ease the workload of PAS1. As you remember, last year we came to LegCo. We came to the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene to report on the latest progress of the food adulteration, metallic contamination regulations. We hope that we'll be able to carry out the legislative amendment this year. We want to try our best to ease the workload of PAS1. That's why back then we asked PAS4 to be in charge of the review of the regulations. Yes, Deputy Secretary. The member asked about whether we took stock of the experience after COVID. Yes. On food supply, we talked to the relevant mainland authorities as well as the wholesale and retail merchants. In case there is an epidemic, we could stabilize the food supply. While COVID is gone, we have already enhanced the connection as well as liaison with the trade, and we've taken stock of the experience during COVID. So we attach more importance to food safety now. That's why we have to retain this post for a period of time. Mr. Leung, I have a follow-up question. Just now the administration said that back then there was already plans to update the food adulteration, metallic contamination regulations. That's why this duty was assigned to the post holder. Once the regulations are amended, will this job be handed back to the PAS? For example, PAS4 is also in charge of the labeling requirements for prepackaged foods. So apart from metallic contamination, this post holder will also be in charge of other food such as cognac. Well, please explain to us about the work. Well, after amending the regulations, perhaps the job duties could be combined. Dr. Starry Lee. On food safety, food supply, and facilitating the entry of Hong Kong food products into the mainland, well, these are all very important. That's why I understand why there is a need to retain this post. Could you please explain to us what measures have been put in place by this post holder to control the level of manpower? This is because the public has been very concerned about the financial position of the government. Also, if this post is retained, well, in the future, this post holder will be in charge of food safety. I took part in the 2 sessions meeting, and I understand that our country is very concerned about food safety. Well, Hong Kong has been very lucky because we've been getting the support of our country, and a lot of the food we eat is from our country. Our country has done a lot of work in ensuring food safety. Secondly, on treasuring food and reducing food waste, I think we can do more. Our country has done a lot in this regard as well. I hope if this post is retained, the post holder will educate the public about the importance of food safety. Also, the post holder should tell the public not to waste food because there has been a lot of food waste in Hong Kong. I hope that you will launch some campaigns to tell the public to treasure food. Under Secretary, 2 questions. Thank you, Chairman. Paragraph 21 of the paper tells you about the establishment changes. On the 1st of April 2024, under the food branch, there were 63 posts, including plus 1 time-limited post. When this current term government was established, that is on the 1st of July 2022, there were some changes in terms of the establishment. So there has been 49 posts plus 1 time-limited post since 2023. We care a lot about the establishment as well as the financial position. The member asked about food safety. This post holder is in charge of food safety as well. And the post holder will follow up on this by liaising with the mainland authorities as well as with the trade. On reducing food waste, the EEB is very concerned about this. For example, we have the Food Wise program. And the food branch is concerned about this so that we can reduce food waste as much as possible.
I hope you will let the public see the importance of food safety. And then food safety must not be taken for granted. It's because we have the support of the country. But then we try to feed over 1 billion people is no mean feat. And about not wasting food, if you go to the mainland, and you go to a restaurant, you see there's always a reminder put on each table. So I think we could do more apart from the Food Wise program or efforts of the NGO. So I think we could try to enhance such awareness further. On food safety, that's of course an important aspect of national security. On National Security Education Day, there's education on various aspects, including food safety, and then there's collaboration with food branch to see what we can do. So we take this very seriously, and then on the mainland they have this campaign to not leave any food on the table. So now we have the Food Wise program and of the ecology branch, and then the food branch also will support such effort. I think what Dr. Lee is saying is you should mount large-scale campaign to tell the public not to waste food. So who's responsible? Is it this post holder or someone else? I think you need to do more here. Thank you. Yes, we'll certainly consider it. Mr. Chairman Kong. Thank you, Chair. Now, this post holder is responsible for food safety, food supply, and export of Hong Kong manufactured food products. By export, do you mean actually transshipment, because what sort of food products do we have to export? Really, I find it baffling. Now, the post was extended a few times, and so if this proposal is also passed, that means this post will have been in place for 10.5 years. Now, one of the tasks is to review food safety legislation, such as the food adulteration, metallic contamination regulation, and then the review exercise will, or the legislative amendment will be completed within this year. In that case, why do we need to keep the post for 3 years? Now, for the tasks mentioned here, well, at the front line, there's the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department, and there's also Permanent Secretary, and under the Permanent Secretary there is a Deputy Secretary responsible for food safety. So what is the division of labor? And then there are 7 directorate posts in the EEB. 6 are AO administrative officers. This one is an executive officer. What's the historical background? Maybe the post is still called a PAS, but then 6 are AOs and 1 is an EO. So is there any reason for that? I'll ask the Deputy Secretary to respond. Mr. Lee, please. On 3 questions of Mr. Chow. First, facilitating the entry of Hong Kong manufactured food products into the mainland market. It is actually export. It's not about transshipment. We want to encourage local manufacturers to enter the mainland market with the food products they've produced. So we want to develop the Greater Bay Area market. So these are food products locally produced. Now, in the first phase, we cover 3 categories of Hong Kong-made products. But in terms of value, that accounts for more than half of the food locally manufactured food products entering the mainland market. On reviewing legislation, where we plan to complete the exercise for the food adulteration and metallic contamination regulation, but then there are other regulations that need to be reviewed too. So the post holder, if the post is retained, will have to handle safety legislation in relation to konjac containing confectionery. So we need to keep reviewing food safety legislation based on the latest developments and information in relation to food safety. And the tasks taken up by this post holder, such as facilitating entry of Hong Kong-made food products into the mainland market, responding to the discharge of nuclear contaminated water, ensuring food supply in Hong Kong. Well, for all these tasks, there is need to liaise and communicate with various government authorities. And on the education publicity effort to reduce the sugar and salt in food, again, that requires various efforts. And we believe the executive officer is the right person to take up such tasks. Now, there are 2 deputy secretaries in the EEB. So what is the division of work, and whether the other directorate staff could take up the work of the current post under consideration? Well, the other director posts have to take up various work. It's a heavy, onerous workload, say for one PAS. The person is to look after public markets, environmental hygiene, barrier, hawker control, etc. And then another PAS has to take up issues such as control of food animals, sustainable development of agriculture and fishery, the industries, animal welfare, and so on. So we have considered very carefully the different duties duties and scope of work of the different directorate posts. So because the other directorate posts already have an honors workload, so they can't really take up the duties of PAS4. Mr. Chao Siu-chung, I have reservation about the proposal to retain the post because there is not enough justification provided in the paper. In 2020, there were 10 items under the main duties and responsibilities. Now there are just 7 items. So that means 30% of the less in duties or workload. Of course, some of the tasks have been completed, or some of the other tasks may have been transferred to other senior staff. But then we can see there are now fewer duties for this particular post. So is it really necessary to keep a D2 post? I have some questions. I hope you could give us further justifications on discharge of nuclear contaminated water in Japan, and then import control measures on food, Japanese food products. Now, it's mentioned in the paper that in September, the country has reached an agreement with the relevant Japanese authorities. So I think there's now a system in place in relation to such work. I know you need to keep reviewing the situation, receive the latest data, but then there are other departments that are the professional departments that handle such matters. For example, the observatory, FHT, Environmental Protection Department, so on. So is it really necessary to have an SEPEO to take charge of such matters? And then my understanding is the post holder is responsible is actually responsible for liaison rather than negotiations. And if it's because if it's a high-level communication, probably it would have to be someone more senior than this post holder. And then a review of food adulteration, metallic contamination regulation. Now, it's said that the task is almost completed. So why do you need to keep a post? This is because this is included as one of the main responsibilities of the post holder. And then green channel for Hong Kong-made food to enter the main market. Of course, this is important. There's a need to make sure this task is properly performed. But can you not put this under the charge of PS3? Because PS3 is responsible for import and export of food and so on. So, and then reduction of salt and sugar in food. Well, this is even more strange as responsibility. In para 3E, you just give a brief mention. I read other documents when there was the proposal to extend the post. This was regarded as one of the 3 main tasks. But what has the post holder done in the past 5 years on this task? There's no mention. Now we want to retain this post to keep carrying out this task, but what are the KPIs? None are mentioned. None is mentioned. So can you please give more justifications on retaining the post? You need to convince us. And if the post is retained, will you not retain the post after 3 years? If the post holder can complete all the tasks within 3 years, all the better. But if not, then the task should be handed over to someone else. That means the post must not be retained further. Well, we may not have enough time. Please try to give an explanation as far as possible. So he's asking whether you should organize the duties among the different other posts and then delete this post.
Mr. Lee, I thank Mr. Chow for the questions on nuclear contaminated water. Of course, we'll have to rely on our experts to do the risk analysis. But we're not simply assessing the risks. We're doing a lot more. If you still remember, last year, there were some incidents in the Fukushima nuclear plant. And in times of these incidents, we had to communicate with the Japanese authorities. Also, as mentioned, the IAEA has been doing a lot to enhance the monitoring mechanism. So we have to closely monitor the work done by the IAEA. This post holder has been doing a lot of liaison work in this regard. In terms of reviewing the food adulteration metallic contamination regulations, back in 2017 we carried out a review already, and now we're doing another review. The international food safety standards have been reviewed from time to time, so we have to update our legislations to align with the international standards. Well, we've been reviewing the manpower under the food branch. At this stage, we don't think there are any existing officers that can shoulder these tasks. If this post is retained, then in the coming 3 years, the post holder will continue to carry out the duties and responsibilities, and 3 years later, we will review the division of work under the food branch, and we will also, subject to the financial situation of the government, see whether we need to continue to retain the post. And if there is a need for us to retain this post, we will come to LegCo. I hope you will explain to Mr. Tommy Jung about this after the meeting. Mr. Perry Yu. Food supply and food safety are essential to members of the public as well as to tourists to Hong Kong. If we're able to ensure food safety and food supply, this will really help boost tourism. Back then, this post was created to ease the workload of PAS-1 because PAS-1 had a lot of work to do. I look at the organization chart and I see that there are 2 PASs, and below them there are 2 D2 officers. This looks like a very balanced and safe approach. However, I have this concern. In the future, is it your goal that there should be 2 PASs under each Deputy Secretary? The time-limited posts have been created for 8 years now, and now you are proposing to retain this post for another 3 years. This post holder is in charge of food safety, food supply, as well as facilitating Hong Kong food into the mainland. However, all this work has to be carried out in a continuous measure. Will you consider converting this post into a permanent one? Also, on food export, you said you want Hong Kong manufactured food to be exported into the mainland. This is a very good idea. Apart from mooncake, what other food products will be exported into the mainland? For example, will you consider including Shenzhen roasted goose or Yunlong squid into your scheme so that these food could be sold in the mainland? Undersecretary, two questions. There is still a lot of work to be done to facilitate the entry of Hong Kong food into the mainland. This is a brand of Hong Kong, so there is a lot of room for us to expand this. So we will continue to work hard in this regard. On food safety legislations, the list involved is a very long one. We have to look at the international food safety standards to see what kind of food is involved in under the international standards. For example, PAS1 has to review a lot of legislations. For example, it has to regulate harmful substances, food additives, sweeteners, coloring agents, and so on. So we will continue to keep in view the latest development of international standards as well as the workload of our officers, and 3 years later we will report to LegCo. What other food could be exported into the mainland? Deputy Secretary. Last May, we rolled out the advance release arrangement. And it was the peak season for selling mooncake. So mooncake is the major type of food being exported to the mainland. Biscuits as well as some kinds of ice cream could be exported as well. It looks like there are only 2 to 3 types of food included under the arrangement. However, if you look at the HS Code of Customs, a lot of food is included under the arrangement. The CFS as well as the trade are aware of this as well. They all know that a lot of food is included under the arrangement. We've been working with the trade so that more food could be included in the arrangement. Next member to speak, Mr. Brave Chen. Thank you, Chairman. I think there is a need to have this post. For example, this post holder is in charge of the discharge of nuclear contaminated water as well as facilitating Hong Kong food into the mainland market. The workload has been increasing, so I support this proposal. Page 9 of the paper, there is a table. Some government departments, for example the health department, said there has been a reduction in terms of the establishment. My suggestion is that you have to review the manpower under the Bureau. You should see what kind of posts can be slashed with the implementation of smart government. This way you can show to the public that you've been saving money and manpower. You look at the table and there's always +1 time limited post. I hope that your bureau as well as other government bureaus could try your best to reduce manpower. Ideally, you should do your best to save money as well. This is a suggestion only. Undersecretary, do you have anything to say? Thank you, Chairman. At the beginning of the meeting, I mentioned that we have been controlling manpower We will not only look at the manpower situation in the food branch, but also in other branches. We'll see whether there is room for us to slash some junior posts, for example. There will be special finance committee meetings. Perhaps we can discuss this further during the meetings. Mr. Tang Fei, food safety is imperative. This is not questionable. I have some questions after reading the paper. How do you differentiate this SPEO post as well as other AO posts for university students? They often apply to AO or EO posts in the government. According to enclosure 2 of this paper, I don't see any differences between the job duties and responsibilities of this post holder and other PASs. They all have 7 main duties and responsibilities. For this SPEO, it is in charge of, for example, food safety and the work of the government laboratory. And for PAS1, part of the duty is to housekeep the Center for Food Safety. So what is the difference between the SPEO duties as well as the duties of AO staff? For example, second duty of PAS is to review food legislation. Shouldn't it be the work or job duties of SPEO? So how is work divided between this post holder and the other AO staff? Please explain. Yes, Mr. Lee. We are proposing to retain the SPEO post. And this post holder is in charge of coping with the discharge of nuclear contaminated water by Japan, and it helps educate the public about reducing salt and sugar in food, and also it helps facilitate the entry of Hong Kong food into the mainland market. It's been liaising with different groups, and we think that it is suitable to have an executive officer to undertake all the work. The job duties and responsibilities may seem similar to that of PAS1, but there is certain uniqueness to the jobs of SPEO. So what is the difference between SPEO and the PAS? Well, one of the major duties for this post holder is to liaise with stakeholders. I understand this should be done by an executive officer, but you have 7 duties for the SPEO and also 7 duties for the PASs, and the job duties look very similar. As far as I understand, AO deal with policy matters, and EOs, they deal with the implementation of policies. Undersecretary, yes, your understanding is right. In terms of policies and legislations, we have AOs undertaking the work. For this SPEO post in particular, as mentioned by the Deputy Secretary, the post holder has been liaising with different stakeholders. For example, the post holder has to talk to the Japanese Consul General. The person also has to talk to different authorities. Also, the post holder has to promote reducing salt and sugar in food and educate the public about this. So there's a lot of communication with the stakeholders. For AOs, they specialize in making use of resources and managing different systems. Say, for example, PAS is in charge of the relevant food safety legislations. And also other duties undertaken by AO. Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you, Chairman. I'm looking at the organization chart. Mr. Tang Fei and Dr. Chow Man Kong asked similar questions just now. Perhaps CSB could provide some insights to us as well. If you look at the organization chart here, this post is called Senior Principal Executive Officer, and you propose retaining this post. But the administration have been calling it D4. Why don't you name this post PAS4? We all have this question in mind. Back then, this post was created because the Japanese government discharged nuclear contaminated water. Then there were some food incidents. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of our country, of course, object to the discharge of nuclear contaminated water by Japan, and our country has not changed in terms of its stance. China has been taking part in the individual sampling of the nuclear contaminated water. If the test results are normal, then the General Administration of Customs of our country may adjust the relevant arrangement. That means things may continue to change. There are a few posts under SPEO, and I wonder how come PAS1 cannot take up all the duties? And also, why don't you name the post PAS4? In the later half of this year, the administration will come to LegCo to report to us about the adulteration, metallic contamination food regulations. So, Pete, please explain to us more in this regard.
Deputy Secretary for Civil Service. Now, this post was first created as a time-limited post, and the level is pitched at a senior principal executive officer. There are historic reasons. Maybe the Undersecretary could give the reasons later. On the division of work between AOs and EOs. As the Deputy Secretary mentioned, with AOs, where they would deal with matters with with policy such as legislation and so on, and then AO, so they are experts in managing resources, systems, and so on. So, should certain duties be taken up by an AO or an EO? Well, then we have to see look at the policy intention of the Revenue Policy Bureau. When they design a certain post, they will have to look at the nature of work to be taken up by the post holder. So would it be more on policy issues, or would it be more on managing resources and systems? And then they'll have regard to the nature of the post, and then they will propose the suitable grade to take up the task or the post. And then on the part of the Civil Service Bureau, if a certain proposal is considered reasonable, then we'll support it. Now, there's a historical background to the creation of the time-limited post. At the time when the post was created, probably there was it was more to do with liaison, coordination, and execution. So the post holder was not involved at the time with policy making or implementation of policies. But then perhaps because the Bureau is seeing an increasing workload, so that's why this post then takes up some of the work of another PAS. Perhaps the Undersecretary could explain the original intention when the post was first created. Well, in 2017 and 2022, in the two documents seeking retention of the post, is still Senior Principal Executive Officer. So that's why in the organization chart we use SPO. But in fact, the post title is called PAS4 because there are PAS 1, 2 and 3 under Deputy Secretary 1, and then under Deputy Secretary 2 there's a PAS1, so and this is PAS4. Now, as we explained, the workload of PAS1 is onerous. So we can't really ask PAS1 to take up the work of PAS4 as well. On food adulteration, metallic contamination regulation is just one of the regulations to be reviewed within this year. In the next few years, there may be new developments, and PAS4 will have to follow up on other legislative amendment exercises, such as the regulation in relation to konjac. And then there's also a need to work on food labeling. So that's why we see that in the next few years, this post holder will still have a heavy workload. Well, I don't think CSB or EB could explain that clearly. Do you really need an AO or an EO to take up this post? You call the post PAS4, Principal Assistant Secretary 4, and then next to, but then the other three PASs are AOs. And for this particular post, PAS4 is an EO post. So that's what we don't get. Just now we asked the Bureau to explain whether you should have an EO or an AO to fill the post. You haven't really answered our question. Can you be more specific? Do you think that for this particular post, it's fine to have an EO to hold it? Well, we have, exceeded the time limit, so please be more direct. Well, just a quick response then, because we've said much already. For this post, we believe it's suitable to have an SPO to hold this post. And of course, the post holder may have to handle policy or legislation matters, and the post holder has to keep in liaison with many different units. But then the post holder has to review the situation. For example, there's need to issue new food safety orders from time to time, like in 2023. So so there may be a need for similar legislative exercises in future. Ms. Eunice Young. I have reservation about retaining this post. Now, PAS1 cannot take up the work of the SPO. I don't think it makes sense. The PAS1 is responsible for market modernization. Here we are talking about the EB taking up the task, but then at the same time we have Center for Food Safety with the Controller of Food Safety, and there's a host of staff being in charge of food safety, and then the FXG is also involved. So there are many departments involved. And then if we are talking about market modernization program, which is under the PAS1, well, this is a 5-year program. It's nothing new. Now, whether it's the DS or the PAS1 being in charge of market modernization is not something new. It's been necessary for all this while. So I don't see why they can't handle the task, because they have the FHD and others helping with the task. So the DS and the PAS should actually just be overseeing the FHT. The FHT is the execution department. So the DS and PS don't have to actually do the work. So you have so many layers. There are those in the bureau level and those at the departmental level. And then, food incidents, that's actually the responsibility of the Center for Food Safety. And then nuclear contaminated water was around for a long time, this issue. And then the food supply, why can't it be handed over to PAS1? You can't say that everybody is working at all different levels, but who is actually doing the real work? So that's why we are always baffled. How come you keep coming back to retain the post, and then the Center of Food Safety, responsible food safety matters, and the markets are under FHD and so on. So you say you want to retain the post. It's a limited post. It's been around. It's been a post in place for a long time, but it remains a time-limited post. And then you said the post holder was in charge of updating a number of legislation ordinances, but which you did mention. I think actually the work of PS4 could be taken up by PSs 1, 2, 3. Now, in the food branch, I explained the division of work earlier on, and I also explained the division of work in the EB as a whole. Now, and then also explained the division of work between the Bureau and departments. Now, PS1 is responsible for markets, and FHC is also responsible for market. I'll explain further. Now, PS1 is responsible for formulating policies, say, on food safety, veterinary public health, and so on. And then food safety standards, food supply, export control, market modernization, and so on. That's under the PAS1. The Center for Food Safety is responsible for planning and monitoring the actual implementation of food safety work. And also it's in charge of law enforcement. That's the work of the Center for Food Safety. And then there's need to keep in liaison with some overseas authorities, so we know about the latest food safety standards, and then such information could be passed on to the Bureau for formulating relevant policies. CFS is also responsible for the relevant expert committee work and so on. So CFS actually also has heavy workload, as you can see, but it keeps in closely working relationship with the food branches to make sure that we put in place proper legislative amendments. Of course, FHD is responsible for markets, but then FHD is more an execution department, and then it gives feedback to the Policy Bureau on areas that need follow up in terms of policy and legislation. On the market modernization program and so on, last year we started to keep in regular communication with this council. So there is a clear delineation of work, and there's a need to follow up on legislative amendments and liaison with relevant authorities. Thank you. Mr. Sunny Tan. Now, I see there are various tasks for safety, coordination, liaison, whatever. I won't ask about that, but I want to raise a point. Now, this proposal is to retain this time-limited post. For the food industry and food processing industry, how important is it to facilitate the entry of our products into the mainland market? Now, there's a strong demand actually for Hong Kong-made food products. They are very popular in the mainland market. But then when it comes to testing of food products, there is a cumbersome process, and that actually reduces our competitiveness. So I hope you will focus on this area of work, because it's important that we facilitate the entry of Hong Kong-made food products into the main market. It will help to promote industrial development in Hong Kong. So I hope you will do more in this respect. Thank you.
Undersecretary, I thank the member for the suggestions. We attach a lot of importance to this area of work. Last year, we finalized the arrangement, and on the 27th of November, we signed a cooperation agreement with the Mainland Authority on the facilitation measures. And this is in line with the SIPA as well as the GBA Outline Development Plan. We have been proactively liaising with Mainland as well as the relevant industry associations. So yes, we've been following up with the Mainland to see what kind of food products can be included in the arrangement. Mr. Holden Chow. So I've been sitting here all morning listening to our discussion. I think I can make a brief summary here. In terms of retaining this post, I think the post holder during COVID was mainly in charge of food safety and also reviewing the discharge of nuclear contaminated water by Japan. So it was probably the busiest for this post holder 2 or 3 years ago. Now members question whether there is a need to retain this post, as the workload may have changed. I hope the administration will explain to us about this. I see the main duties and responsibilities listed out in enclosure 2. One of the duties of this post holder is to facilitate the export of Hong Kong food products into the mainland. Mr. Sunny Tan just now said it is a huge market for the local industry. I've been following up on this for a few years. Back in 2020, I released an advocate about reindustrialization. According to 2020 statistics, we're talking about tens of billions of dollars of food products from Hong Kong that could be imported, that could be exported, and there are 1,400 companies involved, involving 28,000 jobs. In 2024, we had $46 billion worth of food products manufactured in Hong Kong. We're talking about a huge pie here. However, not many people are aware of our achievement in this regard. This could really help support our economy. If we're to retain this post, you should actually put in more effort in this. Now, on the discharge of nuclear contaminated water by Japan, as Ms. Carmen Khan said, our country already has its stance. There might be adjustment in terms of our country's arrangement in the future. Also, now that COVID is gone, can you tell us what this post holder should focus on in the future? Should it help develop our food processing industry? We're talking about $46.5 billion every year. It's a huge pie. Should you put in more resources in this area instead? Can Undersecretary tell us her stance. Can you tell us why you need to retain this post, and what will this post holder focus on in the future? Deputy Secretary. I thank Mr. Holden Chow for the questions. I totally agree with Mr. Holden Chow on this. It was only last May that we implemented the advance release arrangement. However, before that, we actually liaised with the trade as well as the mainland authorities in order for the arrangement to be implemented. So we made a start. And now we focus on the continuity of our work, and we're trying to expand what we can do. Division 8 of the food branch has been working on including food products that are not currently included in the arrangement, so that the food products could be exported into the mainland. We've been following up with the mainland on this, and this will definitely one focus of ours in the future. And we need a dedicated directorate officer to promote this. And on this, we totally are in line with Mr. Chow. Well, Hong Kong brand or Hong Kong branded food works a lot, so I hope the administration can work on this. Dr. Junius Ho. I object to this proposal. It is a time-limited post, and the administration keeps telling us that this post is important. You should then convert it into a permanent post instead of keeping, reviewing, or retaining this post. It's been 8 or 9 years now. And it looks like the other PASs are useless. Some of them are in charge of the graveyard, some in charge of poultry eggs. I see that the first duty of an AO officer, of an AO staff could be combined with the duty of this post holder. I'm looking at the organization chart here. Under the permanent secretary, D8 officer, there is one D3 officer and one D4 officer. And the D3 officer supervises a D2 officer. What I'm saying is that there are 4 D2 officers. It looks like there are 2 deputy secretaries supervising 4 PASs. It looks like a very balanced approach. But if you ask me, while you have not listed out all the officers working under the food branch, I think in total there are 35 officers under this branch. There are 6 non-directorate civil service posts under the SPEO. So I feel that there should be 6 non-directorate officers working under each of the PASs, each of the other 3 PASs. So there is total redundancy. And you spend $3 million per year on each PAS. So it looks like you're going to convert the post into a permanent one in the future, but you don't dare tell us your plan now. So my question is this. If we do not retain this post, is it that the 6 non-directorate officers working under the post will work instead for the other 3 PASs under secretary? The 6 non-directorate officers support the post holder. No, I'm talking about if this post is not retained, will the 6 non-directorate officers shift to the other 3 divisions? If we don't, well, don't tell me about work efficiency. I just want to know if this post is not retained, will the 6 non-directorate officers work for the other PASs instead? The 6 non-directorate officers will continue to support the work. I'm asking whether the 6 officers will be assigned to the other 3 divisions instead. There are 3 other PASs, is that right? Without the SPEO, will the 6 non-directorate officers working under the SPEO be working for the other 3 PASs instead? Will that happen or not? Yes, the 6 non-directorate officers will be kept. Chairman, I think the Undersecretary is very hard-working. However, how come it is not the D8 officer who explains to us about the administration's proposal? The Undersecretary cannot tell us clearly what each of her officers do. We're seeing all the underlying problems now. It is not fair to us because Undersecretary is not clear about what each officer does. And it is not explained in the paper why the SPEO is so important. Perhaps the Civil Service Bureau has heard Dr. Junius Ho's views. Perhaps you should consider which principal official you should send to this meeting to explain about the proposals. The Undersecretary does not have a full picture of the situation. We should have the Permanent Secretary instead. Dr. Tan Yueheng. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, food safety is important. There is never anything trivial about food safety. So I can see why there's need to have someone to look after food safety. I have 2 questions. There's an important duty here that is responding to the discharge of nuclear contaminated water by Japan. It's more to do with import control on food. I think there are relevant departments in the country that will oversee the overall arrangement. And Hong Kong should actually just follow such policies and arrangements. So under the national policy and arrangement, how can we strengthen communication and liaison with relevant authorities on the mainland? That's the first one. Another question on import control of Japanese food products. There's a description of the work of the post holder. It's actually not that complicated because it's just responsible for liaison, and then it keeps track of developments and then passes on the information to other departments for assessment. The post holder doesn't actually do the assessment. So with this description of the duties involved, then perhaps this work is pitched at too high a level. Well, there's need for this post, but it seems that this post is too senior for handling such tasks. So how can the Bureau further optimize such personnel arrangement? There should be make better work arrangement, for instance. Undersecretary, respond to the questions, and the Deputy Secretary could supplement. The member gave his views on the duties of this post. on nuclear contaminated water, we keep in close liaison with our country. We share the same goal. We want to ensure food safety and public health. Of course, the two places may have different systems and arrangements, so we have regard to our own regulatory framework in designing measures. And as I explained earlier, we have to keep tab of developments in future. There may be need to amend legislation or the issuing of food safety orders, for instance. So there's a need for this post holder to do the work. Perhaps Deputy Secretary could respond to other points. Thank you, Dr. Tan, for his questions. Now, we use terms like close monitoring, so on in the paper, but it doesn't mean that we can just rely entirely on the professional departments such as the Center for Food Safety, FHG, or the Department of Health or the Observatory to do the analysis of data. Because when it comes to discharge of nuclear contaminated water, there is much communication with relevant ministries and departments of the mainland and the Japanese authorities. We also have to keep track of the assessments of IAEA, so there's much communication work required. As I mentioned, there have been incidents from time to time involving the Fukushima nuclear power station. And then whenever an incident happens, we have to immediately contact the relevant Japanese authorities to find out about the nature of the incident. And then we have to assess whether there's any impact on food imported from Japan. So we need to carry out such tasks at short notice. So that's why we need to keep this post to follow up on the work in the next 3 years. We agree there may be new developments in relation to the discharge of nuclear contaminated water, in particular in relation to international monitoring. So that's why we will review our manpower needs in the next 3 years. We ask members for your support for retaining the post for now. Dr. Shou Chang-Wing, thank you. Food safety is something we do really well in Hong Kong, so we need to keep up that effort. That's why I support the retention of the post. Now, a question. You stress there is a need for continuity in these tasks. Now, nuclear contaminated water will be discharged for 30 years. And on facilitating entry of Hong Kong-made food products into mainland market, this is an ongoing task. So why don't you turn this into a permanent post? Because then it would be better for you to plan the job work duties of the post. And then you don't have to come back to this council every few years to extend the post. The Undersecretary said you review the needs of the post after a few years. You also review based on the financial position of the government. But then we can see these are all ongoing tasks. Definitely, there's a need to keep the post. And if government finances are tight, you still need to ensure food safety, for instance. And the 3 major tasks must still be carried out. Dr. Junior So say you're trying to hide your real intention, but really, I ask if you're just posturing because of the current financial position. So that's why you're not turning it into a permanent post. You want to keep it as time-limited post for now. Undersecretary. Yeah, as we mentioned, we will monitor the situation. We will try to cope with the work needs. At the same time, we want to keep flexibility. And at an appropriate juncture, we will review the manpower needs together with the Council. In 2025-26 budget, as mentioned that in 2026 to 27 and 2027 to 28, in each year, there is need to reduce the civil service establishment by 2%. That's for each year. And now we want to keep this time-limited post for 3 years. And we believe that's the best arrangement under the circumstance. In future, we will discuss with the Council again when we review the need of the post. Mr. Stephen Ho, thank you. DAB supports the retention of the post. The Undersecretary said much about work already completed. For example, work carried out during the COVID pandemic. But that shouldn't have been the duties of the post holder. But anyway, you said much about that. But I think we need to be clear about the priorities of this post. First, of course, facilitating Hong Kong-made food products into the mainland market. That's important. If you don't want to want us to have a discussion at the Finance Committee, you have to explain that more clearly. That's the first point. Secondly, liaison work, I don't think this post holder is doing enough. I think last year, 3 categories of food were covered under the advanced release arrangement. Here we're talking about prepackaged food such as ice cream. So such products could be exported into the mainland market. You know, I represent the agriculture and fisheries sector. Well, there are quality fresh produce in Hong Kong. And we are confident about the food safety of such products, but there's so far only one type of product, a sort of fungus that could be exported to the main market. So do you have any plan to promote the facilitated entry of fresh produce to the mainland? Because if you're just talking about prepackaged food, there may not be a need for such a senior post. Now, with food control, we have been focusing on regulation that we don't consider long-term plans. And for example, if you say people must not use kitchen waste to feed pigs, then that means you cannot. Then you don't encourage research. As a directorate officer, you have to review legislation that senses the way of innovation and technology to be adopted in, say, the pig breeding business and so on. So there's need for better coordination. And then I think that should be the focus of this post holder in the next few years. And I think at this moment, it's better to have a supernumerary post. The advantage that you have to come back every few years and then we can ask you questions. If it's a permanent post, we can't really take you to task. And of course, the government has tight finances. We have to be careful with the retention of each post. And I think you are reducing 2 posts and just adding 1 post, so I commend you for that effort. You've made savings. I think the SAL government has to consider combining certain director posts in future if we're talking about long-term savings. I hope you'll be able to do that. Under Secretary. Perhaps the Deputy Secretary could supplement later on issues of concern to members, if I may respond. In the food branch, there are 4 PSs. PS4 is in charge of import of mainland food products, and then Mr. Ho is interested in promoting, expanding the market of local agricultural produce. Now there are 2 funds on agriculture and another on one on agriculture and one on fisheries. The 4 PSs actually work together. There are 3 categories of food now covered under the advanced release arrangement. So how could we help local farm and fisheries produce to enter the mainland market? We'll also look into that. Deputy Secretary, thank you. About helping Hong Kong produce food into the mainland market, that's one of our important tasks. Last May, we started the advanced release arrangement. Yes, it may just cover 3 categories of food products, but that already account for half of the food exported to the mainland in terms of value. And we have put in great effort to make this breakthrough. So that's the first step taken. And there are still various other barriers we have to address. For example, meat products, pre-cooked food. We would like these products to enter the mainland market, and that's our target. We will continue our communication with the relevant ministries and departments on the mainland so that we could take more Hong Kong food products into the mainland market. Now, so we've made a breakthrough. We've started a new arrangement, and we need a lot of manpower resources to take forward such tasks. And of course, and then when the barriers are removed, then we will review the manpower needs to see whether there's room to delete certain posts, as mentioned. Well, if you've made breakthroughs, you need to come back and tell us what barriers you've removed, for instance. Last member to speak, Mr. Benson Look. That's the 19th member, actually, to speak. And after that, I'll put the item to vote. Mr. Benson Look. Thank you. BPA supports the retention of the SBU post. One of the main duties of the post holder is to facilitate the entry of Hong Kong manufactured food products into the mainland market. And as the Deputy Secretary mentioned, much work has been done to make this breakthrough. So there's a relaxation of regulation, and we commend the effort. Now, for some categories of food, the products can be released without waiting for the results of sampling. And then paragraph 19 of the paper, there's mentioned that that will be help to local food manufacturers to seize business opportunities arising from the development of GPA. Now, I think what's important is you help the industry to do business. But then here, the work of the post holder is just to organize liaison meetings, seminars, disseminating information, website, blah, blah, blah. But can you tell us what specific plans you have to help the sector to seize these business opportunities after the relaxation of regulation? Mr. Lee. The local food manufacturers have been telling us that for many categories of food products, there are various restrictions and regulatory requirements for these products to enter the mainland market. So we need to strive for relaxation of such restrictions. And that means we need to communicate with the relevant ministries and departments on the mainland. We know that the mainland actually welcomes Hong Kong-made food products to enter the mainland market, but then there's need to comply with the relevant requirements on the mainland. So the Center for Food Safety and the local food manufacturers need to find ways to comply with these requirements. Now, for example, the advanced release arrangement implemented in May last year. This is a good example. Now, initially for Hong Kong food products, when they go into the mainland market, there's need for sampling, and then food products need to be kept until the sampling results are out. And that may be a week, 3 weeks, or any length of period. But then for perishable food products or seasonal food products, if there's no certainty as to when such products could be released, it is an uncertainty for food businesses. Now with the ARA, it is great facilitation. Why we're able to achieve that? Perhaps for certain sampling, initially is to be done at the cross-boundary point, but perhaps in Hong Kong we could ask a third party to do the testing, and then there could be a certificate to prove that the food products comply with the requirements on the mainland, and then such information is given to the mainland authorities so they can therefore handle the food products differently. So it's about communication and collaboration among departments of both places, and so it's great. It is an onerous task to carry out such communication. And now we are trying for more categories of food product to be included under ARA. So we will continue our communication and coordination with the mainland, so more Hong Kong food products could then enter the mainland market. Thank you.
Chairman, one suggestion. If this is a business opportunity for us, and if this post holder will continue to undertake the work, I hope the post holder will really help local food manufacturers seize business opportunities. Well, Mr. Holden Chow mentioned that it involves about $40 billion per year. I hope the next time we have a discussion about this, it will be 80-some billion dollars. Now I'm going to put this item to vote. Will those in favor of the proposal set out in paper EC bracket 2024-25-15 raise their hands? Will those against please raise their hands? Noted. I think the majority of members who take part in the vote are in favor of the proposal. This proposal is approved. Now, on whether the FC should further discuss this item, that is EC bracket 2024-25-15. Now, in accordance with Paragraph 40A of the Establishment Subcommittee Procedure, I put the following motion to vote. This subcommittee recommends the Finance Committee to have a further discussion of the proposal set out in EC bracket 2024-25-15. I remind members that if this motion is passed, it means that this subcommittee recommends the FC to have a further discussion on this paper. If the motion is negative, it means that this subcommittee does not recommend the FC to have a further discussion on this. Will those in favor please raise their hands? 4. Will those against please raise their hands? All right, I think the majority of members who take part in the vote are against this motion. That means this subcommittee does not recommend the FC to have a further discussion on the paper EC bracket 2024-25-15. The next meeting will be held on the 30th of April 2025 from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. It's a Wednesday. Thank you for attending today's meeting.